Hey guys, so today I am super excited to announce that I got a Japanese cave gecko. I will talk more about it at the end, but right now I'm going to be showing you me building his upgraded enclosure. This isn't going to be his final enclosure. I'm just kind of going up steps because they're pretty shy. Like I said, I'll talk about it more at the end, but I've been waiting forever to find a captive bred Japanese cave gecko, and I finally got my hands on one. I got him shipped to me, or her, I don't know, back in March, and I've just been keeping an eye, watching, making sure everything was going well with them, and now they are getting more space. So without further ado, here's the build. So this is my baby Japanese cave gecko on the very first day that it came home. You're not going to see it much in the video, so I wanted to include this at the beginning. So the first thing I'm doing is taking my hefty Sterilite tub and puncturing holes in it for ventilation. I wanted to make sure the holes were small, but there was enough of them. They do need pretty high humidity, but also airflow. And I, of course, do open it every day to replace the food and water, so that also helps. This is one of the more shallow bins, but it still is about half the size of a 10-gallon tank. So still a lot more floor space than the Critter Keeper. All the products I'm using are BioDude, so this is the BioDude drainage layer, and like I learned last time when I was doing my white stray frog, it needed to be wetted before. So I just went ahead and sprayed it down with ReptiSafe water, and then I went in with my springtail culture and I just dumped them. I had just recently taken some out for my white stray frog enclosure, so I wanted to make sure that I got plenty in there. So I just dumped it, and then I'll probably just use one of my other cultures for the next couple months until this one replenishes. But just throwing some charcoal in there from their culture and making sure I have lots and lots of springtails in there. I might have to add more because, like I said, I did take quite a few for my white stray frog bin. But yeah, I just wanted to get as many as I could in the drainage layer. So now I'm taking my mesh. I cut this big enough for a 10-gallon tank, so I could reuse it when they go into the 10-gallon tank, but I'm just folding it under so I didn't waste a piece, because this is kind of a weird size bin. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to use it for anything else in the future that needed bioactive, that is. So I'm just using the mesh as a substrate barrier, folding it under, and then I'm just going to take the Terrafauna substrate and dump it in. They do have one that's more like crested gecko-y, but I wanted the humidity to stay up a little higher, which is why I used the Terrafauna. And then I'm also going to mix in sphagnum moss, which is what they're currently on from the Critter Keeper, as well, just to really make sure that I can get the humidity up pretty high, because they are cave geckos and do need pretty high humidity most of the time, unlike crested geckos that need like a definite dry out period. So I am just going to use this one, see how it goes, and if the humidity ends up being too high, I will switch it. But for now, I think this will be fine. And then I'm just misting down the substrate and going to go in with the decor items. So this is a little skull house that I want to use as like the extra humid area. So what I'm going to do is actually just start taking the sphagnum moss from the current enclosure, the current Critter Keeper that they're in, and one, shoving it in that little head hole to help keep humidity up, but two, filling it a little bit with the sphagnum moss so that it can stay really humid. This is the mealworm dish I use. It needed to be small enough that they could get in and eat, but the mealworms couldn't get out. So that's why I went with this one. It's worked pretty well. It's the same one I use for my leopard geckos, actually, even though Nightmare is way smaller than my leopard geckos. And then I'm also taking the Josh's Frog Spring to Life springtail food and putting it under the water dish to encourage the springtails to come up, but also make it so Nightmare doesn't just eat all of the springtails right away, because I do want them to try populating underneath. This is just a little plant that I'm putting in there. Obviously it's fake, just for some coverage in the back. And then here is where I'm going to start filling the head with the sphagnum moss substrate from the Critter Keeper. So I'm just gonna shove it all in. I do only feed nightmare, dubia roaches, and mealworms right now. So everything that it is eating is out of a bowl, so I don't have to worry too much about impaction or anything. If I do start feeding it crickets in the future when they're a little bit bigger, I will take that into consideration. Nightmare's currently in that little cat ceramic house. They don't come out very often. Like I said, they're pretty shy little creatures. So now they'll have multiple hides instead of just the cat house and the bush thing. And then I'm going to take that piece of the rest of the substrate and just sprinkle it around. It's mostly sphagnum moss, so it'll help keep the humidity up, and also just to give some familiarity, I guess. I'm not super sure if they know based on their substrate, but it just felt nice to take the substrate that they currently had and kind of sprinkle it around so it still feels like home, and hopefully encourage them to explore a little bit more, especially now that they have so much more space. And then I'm just going to take one more little piece of a vine and put it over by the food and water, just to make sure they feel covered over there, because I don't want them to not eat because they don't feel comfortable. And then I do keep them in the corner of my pet room, pretty in a dark, secluded area to give them the most coverage. And if it becomes a problem, I can also put paper around the bin. But I wanted to be able to still make sure I can find them easily, make sure they're okay, but also let them have enrichment. So then I'm just going to put the lid on and we will be all done. So, like I said at the beginning, I have been waiting to find a captive bred Japanese cave gecko for probably close to a year now. They are very hard to come by, and a couple months ago, I guess maybe end of February, beginning of March, I saw a post on Instagram from Tiki's Geckos saying that they were going to have captive bred Japanese cave geckos available on their next shop update. So I was freaking pumped. So I literally was so excited that I set an alarm on my phone to make sure that as soon as they went live, I got my hands on one. I don't think they're a super popular animal, but just because I'd been waiting for so long, I had to make sure that I captured this opportunity. So I got my hands on one. They were awesome. They called a couple days later to schedule a shipment. The baby was shipped straight to my house through UPS. Everything went well. I had originally had a 10-gallon tank set up, and when it arrived, it was a lot smaller than I thought. So I put it in a critter keeper for the first month and a half, and that was basically just so I could monitor it, so I could make sure it was able to find its food and water, and kind of get used to its new environment. And about a month and a half later, I set it up in the bin that I just built, and eventually I will be putting it in a 10-gallon and then a 20-gallon. A 20-gallon long. And if they use all the space, of course, I will upgrade them even to a bigger enclosure. Currently, he or she has just started recently showing signs of wanting to explore and feeling cramped, I guess, because before that, they almost never left that little cat house. So I decided to give them a little more space, give them a little more coverage. I feel comfortable with their ability to find food and water. So yeah, I named it Nightmare. I think they are beautiful. This is what Nightmare looked like when I first got her, or him, or it, I don't know. And then I will insert a picture of what Tiki's geckos adults look like, so you can see kind of what it'll look like when it's bigger. They don't get as big as leopard geckos, and they are very, very shy. They're not something that you're going to be able to handle. It's definitely a watch pet, but I just think they are so beautiful. It literally looks like my Halloween dreams. So yeah, I literally can't believe that I got my hands on this and like it's real, and I've had her or him for this long. So yeah, we'll watch her grow together. She's almost doubled in size since I originally got her. When I first got her, she was literally like this big, super teeny. And now she's about this long. She didn't come out in the video, like I said, super shy, but I do have that picture and video of when I first got her. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you guys next week, and until then, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.